Welcome to Win with lifestyle entrepreneurs Josh Williams and Justin Knoll. Each week, we will be bringing you inspiring people or messages to help you win in every aspect of life. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to Win. Success Leaves Clues. Wow, we haven't done an actual intro like that since like week 4.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd bring it back real quick.
Let's actually say what we are.
Yeah.
I like
People
it.
like, so I heard that you guys get on there and just talk sometimes. What does that mean? I don't know. Just don't worry about it. Well, how's it going, Chad?
It's going well.
Yeah, it's going
really
good.
well.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're super excited. You know, Justin and I, obviously big baseball guys, or we think we're big baseball guys. So what we did is we were like, let's actually bring somebody on that is actually a baseball guy. You know, we talk a little bit of game, but we're like, maybe we should have somebody on that knows the game.
Yeah.
I mean, we're pretty good, but it's just a different level, right?
We're JVs. We're JV. Let's call it what it is.
We're JV, 100%. 100%.
We think we're getting called up to varsity tomorrow, but that shit's not happening.
Right, exactly. So we brought the varsity, star player in today, which is great. We're going to talk some baseball. We're going to talk about the parallels from baseball to life and to business. And, Chad and I have talked a lot about that, even just on the drive down here today. So we're excited to get into today. And those that have already joined, I know you guys are big, love the baseball scene and those things. And it's just going to be a fun day. We're excited to have you, man. Thanks for coming down.
Do you want to give him a formal intro, his full name and what he does, or is that up to him?
They don't know? You don't know who he is.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Chad, we're learning here.
So today we have Chad Povich. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself and, say where you're from and stuff. But Chad Povich, what is your title over at RoughRiders right now?
Director of baseball.
All right, so Director of Baseball. That's why I coach in the softball organization. But, it's good. It's good. Chad is phenomenal at what he does. I started coaching with him. It's been a long time now. It's been like 8-9 years ago that we started coaching together.
Long?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was beginning of Thornton, and then we went from there. So it's been a long time, and just to watch how he just is able to teach the kids and actually just like really get in deep with them, to be able to know them and get, them to the next level has been great. My own 12-year-old daughter, me being a coach thinking I had this shit down, right? And I bring her into Chad and he's doing some hitting with her. One thing Chad has said is these kids always try to be perfect, right? And I may have or may not have expected perfection from my own child.
Right.
At 12 years old. I don't know. We're going to skip over it.
Super realistic, right?
Once Chad told her, stop trying to be so perfect. Enjoy getting up there and hitting. It's amazing to see how much better she is at hitting the ball right now, just in general. So, man, it's fun to watch you work with the kids. It's fun to watch you help them progress and where they want to do and where you want them to be. So that's the shit we're excited to see today and be with you. And I think I've said shit like 4 times today. Might just be you bringing it out of me. It's the baseball
I'm
thing.
counting. So.
Okay, we'll have Coral on the counter out there. All right. So thank you for coming out, man. Let's, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, where you went to school, all those things.
Kind of just the whole.
Yeah, give us the Chad Povich story.
All right. Well, Denver native. Grew up, in the Thornton, Broomfield area. Went to Legacy High School. I was the first full graduating class out of there, so that was very, special. I actually got to cut the ribbon, of that school.
Wow.
So, and
the crazy part is my school, I think, got demolished that same year. Okay, sorry, keep going. Yeah.
So it was kind of cool, being the first full graduating class, because when that school started, there was only freshmen, sophomores. So every single year we gained a class. So, varsity baseball was pretty easy to make at that point in time because, you're essentially battling two groups. So I was very fortunate to play varsity baseball all 4 years, letter all 4 years. Obviously, we can go into another, topic in politics and high school baseball. And, I'm sure you guys have something on that as well, but I won't go there quite yet. After my 4 years at Legacy, got the opportunity to go to Dixie State in St. George, Utah. pretty much on a full ride scholarship. Didn't really have to pay anything. Played baseball there. After my first year, got drafted by Pittsburgh. Ended up, it was the last year of the draft and follow. So if anybody knows what draft and follow, they kind of hold your rights for that year and the next year. And then, said no to that and thought that, I could get some more opportunities, better opportunities with some other clubs. I felt like I could, essentially do a lot better than I did. I think I went like 12-1 or 11-1. Probably walked 100 guys that year, but win
That's
record.
That's a lot.
The win
guys.
record is all that matters. That's right.
So really, realistically, my second year, I did the same thing again. So actually, when Dixie was a 2-year junior college, I set the wins record.
Nice.
I think like within 2 years, I had like 2 or 3 losses at the most, which was pretty cool. I mean, I was hitting a groove, and obviously being drafted, the first time gave me a lot more confidence. And that plays a huge role in youth sports, and that's kind of what I base a lot of my teaching is how do I gain confidence in these young players. So after my sophomore year, I didn't get drafted again. Obviously said no to the draft and follow. Got drafted. I got an opportunity at the end of my junior year to go to Vegas and throw for a guy named John Lukens, who at that time was with the Boston Red Sox. I was warming up in the outfield, and I was kind of a low 3/4 right-hander, and so I got a lot of movement. But realistically, I was telling him the major league average was 88.5 at that time.
Fastball average.
Fastball average, yep. And so I was actually, hovering, especially in college. In high school, I was hovering around like 88, 89, touching 90 every once in a while. In college, I was kind of in the same exact realm, but now I was, more 89 to 91 on an average, touching 92 with, that little bit of movement. So in long toss, when I was playing catch, when I drove to Vegas to meet this guy, I was really over the top, and I was getting a lot of carry. My arm was feeling really good that day. He essentially made the change of bringing my arm slot up to right up top.
Yeah.
And and not saying that this is for everybody, and it just happened to work for me. Is when I got in the bullpen and I was starting to throw, I went from averaging 89 to 91 to averaging 93 every single pitch, and it seemed like every single pitch I was throwing, I was going up. So I ended up topping out like 95 that day. And that was the hardest I've ever thrown. And so he's like, "Well, we're going to take you." And I was like, you really not, like, people can say that, and until the draft happens, until your name is on there, and it's awesome hearing your name, and it's such a feeling that I can't even really describe. But that day was kind of like the tipping point of like, I can do a lot more. I was kind of handcuffed when I was, in college. Velo wise, I thought I was kind of maxed out. I was a max pitcher anyway. So
Right.
So when I got my name called, I was like, I'm signing no matter what I get paid, done. I'm glad it wasn't my senior year, because they'd just thrown me a candy bar and a plane ticket, and I'd have been out of there. I probably still would have signed.
Absolutely, you would.
Still would have taken it.
So when I at that point in time when they drafted me, they told me I had to go play in like a college league. So I played in the RMBL, which is a college league here in Denver area, and I actually have a team with my organization that I put in there every single year. They're the Collegiate RoughRiders, the Rocky Mountain RoughRiders. So I went and played with a group, and I still talk to guys that I played on that team because every single week there's somebody from Boston out there, a cross checker of somewhat, and they'd come out and watch our guys, and they're like, "Dude, this is the best thing ever. We got pro guys at our games every single day, and this is so cool." And really, they're just there to figure out how much to pay me, because they really didn't know. They're going off this guy's word. And John Lukens, if he ends up watching this at any point in time, I'm gonna give him a shout out, because that guy is really helped me out.
Awesome.
Getting in there and giving me the opportunity. So I want to thank him. But so it was cool because I was only there for a couple weeks, and I was at Metro, and this is at Metro's old field. So I don't know if you guys know, like what that looked like. You're pretty much, if you're going to hit a home run, it would be hitting it right into downtown, which is really cool.
Area,
so, and so, I was down there, and I felt good, and I think I was at that day I was probably like sitting like 95, 96, which was pretty crazy at the time because I was feeling jacked up. I was throwing like as hard as I could in the bullpen. He runs down, and he's like, "Oh my God, dude, you need to like calm down, calm down, save your bullets." I'm like, all right, I calm down. So I go in the bullpen, or go from the bullpen to the dugout, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and my catcher's like, "Dude, you're throwing pretty hard today. It's a good day." And I was like, "Yeah, something's gonna happen today. Something good's gonna happen." And so go out there and strike out the first 3 guys, and I come back in, and I was going out for my second inning of work, and the coach comes out and gets me, and John and one of the cross checkers, his name is Daryl Milne. He's actually a Colorado native as well. He's here, and I'm sure you've ran into Daryl. Daryl's an awesome dude.
Yeah,
talk about a genuine guy. That guy's awesome. So they're behind the dugout and pretty much said, "Hey, here's your plane ticket. This is what we're paying you. Get going." So that's pretty much how it happened.
Chad gave the deuces. I was like, "I'm out."
Did you finish the game, or did you just?
No, I told the guys to, go get them and have a great rest of the year. They're like all those guys. I think. I'm trying to think if you knew anybody from that team. JT Putt was on that team. Do you know JT Putt? He's with Catalyst right now.
Okay. We just played them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like all the guys that I played with are now like running all these club organizations, which is pretty cool. So I just bounced, and we went and celebrated because I was leaving that next day, literally.
Yeah.
It's like,
Crazy.
"Here's your plane ticket. You better be there tomorrow. Go pack all your stuff." I'm like, "Man, I don't even know what to pack." Just make sure I had my glove and my cleats, and I was good.
They got the rest. That's all you need.
Yeah. So
one pair of boxers, done. Let's go.
To shorten it up a little bit, when I got out there, they flew me to Fort Myers, Florida, and when people were saying Fort Misery, like I figured that out really quick because it was hot. It was humid. I mean, it was.
You're from here.
Yeah.
Like, this is
it was a different
good.
type of weather.
And the bugs are.
And so I actually, my story is a little bit different. And some guys that I played with, like, they're kind of jealous because, I actually moved up really, really fast. Within a month and a half, I made it all the way up to AA. And typically, no one's on that type of fast track.
Yeah.
I couldn't really get comfortable, which was probably a good thing, because when you start getting comfortable, that's when you start, effort levels start going down, or
Bad habits.
Your mind starts thinking something different. But it seemed like every single week I was moving up. So I think I had 2 outings in the GCL, which was the Gulf Coast League. Rookie ball. That's where everybody ends up, playing their first year. So I had 2 outings there. Did pretty well. Then they moved me up to Lowell, Massachusetts, which is, if you've ever been to Lowell, it's kind of like an old school boxing town, and I mean it's
very blue collar.
Yeah.
And
they sell out, and it's right next to Boston. And so, like, if you know Boston fans, they either love you or hate you. It just really depends on how you're doing. And so, it was awesome. The good atmosphere. It got me like acclimated to like kind of what Boston fans are all about, because that's Lowell's typically right in their backyard. So, from Lowell, I went to High A, which was now in I skipped High A and I went to AA in Portland, Maine, and that's as far away from home as I've ever been.
Yeah, it's pretty far.
All the way in the corner of the United States, and
it's up there.
It was up there, and seriously, those fans are the same exact way, and it was really awesome because I was doing good at that time, and I went up to Lowell and pitched decently well. Ended up being like the sea dog of the game, and then I was a reliever at that point in time, so I ended up starting to be like a priority guy. So now they put me as a starter. And so when you find yourself as a starter in pro ball, it's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It's like all the big leaguers that we see in the games now. At some point in time, they were starters.
Yeah.
And so, that's pretty much the gist of my first year, and I won't go past that. But I can tell you, for all the young listeners out there, once you start worrying about other people and their successes, you stop worrying about yourself. And that's when you kind of gobbled up in this game as a fickle way of kind of throwing you the curveball and getting you out. So your job is always on the line when it comes to professional baseball, and the guys in the big leagues, they obviously have a strong mental game. They worked hard and they worried about themselves, and that's why they're there. So
I think that's one thing. I've had a couple of brothers that played pro ball, one in the Pirates organization. Be glad you didn't sign. It was a hot mess. But anyway, hopefully they've turned it around. It looks like they've turned it around a little bit. But they said the absolute thing. I mean, these are two of the most talented kids coming out of Colorado at the time, Player of the Year and all this, and they played at the AA and AAA level, and they said the absolute difference maker between all the talent. Everybody's talented at that level. Right. Everybody was the best player in their school. Everybody was the MVP. Everybody was all-star since they were 7. It's the mental makeup, right? And so you're at a level now where you're leading an organization of student athletes, young kids, and we got to remember it's student first.
Correct.
And then
100%.
athlete. That is a big piece.
100%.
What do you see?
We're going to go back and edit that.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
The athlete who's enrolled in school.
Athlete students, those athletic students that you're leading, yes.
But what are some of the things that you see? Is there anything that you see for the high achievers mentally that they are so locked in on? And how soon can you see that in a kid? Do you see it in a 12, 13, 14-year-old where you go, man, they've got the mental makeup or the capabilities, or is it just something they figure out when they get there?
I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things to teach is, baseball players have to have short-term memory.
Totally.
And I think, we chatted about this earlier, is everybody's trying to be perfect, right? And so it's very easy to be mechanical, but I mean, what I teach when I'm in my one-on-one sessions is realistically, I'm giving you something to work on, but you have to make it your own. So once they make it their own, it's a little bit easier to kind of, free up kind of any perfection that you're trying to put into it because you are making it your own.
Right.
I think, from ages 9 to 12. It's kind of a crapshoot. If you ever watch those games, it's like you get on first, and then it's like you're on second, and then you're on third, and then you're hoping that there's a pass ball or a base hit or just a ball in play. But there's certain kids that actually are a little bit better, and I think it's just because they're not having that pressure of trying to be perfect. They don't really care about wins and losses. They're actually happy to be out there, and I think I know I'm tapping into the parental world of how helicopterish we can be with our kids, and we talked about this a little bit earlier as well as just the parents, how much they influence their kids on how they act or how they react. Yep. Not really trying to steer them into failure, but trying to steer them away from it as much as they possibly can, which is hurting them that much more. And so if we get to the point where, like I try to tell my parents, like, hey, just let your kids play, let us coach. Yeah. And we're going to teach on when they have failure, when they have success, how to deal with both. Yep. And the parents that are 100% in with that, their kids are actually progressing so much faster.
Yeah. They seem to be more well acclimated to what's real in life, and that is you're going to fail. Yeah. And you nailed it. We talked just about how much they try and shelter kids from failing, like it's a sin, like it's a bad thing. And maybe we need a new word for a failure or something, but that's the best teacher. Absolutely, by far, it's the best teacher, but we shy away from it because we don't want to hurt them, or we don't want to create scenarios where they feel less about themselves. And so I think these programs, and I'm part of one as well, I think there needs to be a focus on the mental side of it, almost a mental coach that can slow things down and say, here's what happened, here's your reaction, let's talk this through kind of thing. Because everybody's got skill set, everybody's being coached the same type of stuff, right. But that's the one thing we seem to shy away from, and I think it's a society thing as well. It's just
to use Sophie, Josh's daughter, as an example. When he brought her in to hit, and I'm,
be prepared. He's about ready to throw me under the bus right here.
Does he erase all the bad habits?
No.
Swing playing? Yeah.
So realistically, I all I did was attack her mind and the way she thinks. I didn't really want to mess with mechanics. I kind of stray away from that word because I feel like when I start talking mechanics and I start, hey, your arm needs to be here, your leg needs to be here, it's like, then we get to the point where that perfection thing comes into play. These kids are trying to, not disappoint you and try to do everything just perfect. And don't get me on pitching because everybody tries to hit the black on each corner of the plate and it's like crazy.
Yeah.
But with his daughter, I really just tackled the mind and what do you think and what's going through your head. Like you practice one way and in the games you play another way, and she opened up to me pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And how's she hitting now?
She's hitting good.
There you go.
Yeah. She's
So,
good.
Just changing the mindset is going to change the swing. And I think in business it's I have coaches, and I'm obviously not going to name any names, but I have coaches that kind of just have a different mindset in doing things. And the pro guys that I bring in, they have a more of a grinding mentality.
Yeah.
And they know that like just doing the little things, whether if it's cleaning up cages, like the stuff needs to be done, and they're just going to jump on and do it. The other kids that are a little bit younger in generation, I'm sure we're going to get on that topic, but they just feel like some sense of entitlement that they shouldn't be doing that, and they're better than that. And the guys that know what a grind actually is, they're going to just go get it done.
Yeah. It's so funny because I hear all these kids say the word grind all the time, but you see when it comes time to clean up the dugout, their parents have to come in and clean up for them.
Right.
Like, you are not even close to a grinder, my friend. You have no idea. Let me just guess how it is at home. Right? You don't have a chore list. You don't have expectations at home. And for parents that are listening to this, is create good habits at home that carry over into this. Because they're always, as long as you're playing ball, you're going to go over.
Yeah.
There's not a ball player out there that's hitting 300 every game. It's just not realistic. You're going to go over. That's the best preparation. We see it in business too. I love that you slow it down and say, what were you thinking there? And it's not accusatory or like jump on that. Let's really talk about what was your mindset there. I think that carries so much over into business and life and parenting as well. It's just asking the question, right?
Yeah, I always joke with a lot of my kids. I'm like, hey, how you doing? They're like, I'm good. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, my good, I know what my good means.
Yep.
Like, what does that mean? What does your good mean? Or they're all right. Or, it's they just say like that. And I'm like, man, you need to start expressing how you feel. Because I'm not a mind reader. I don't have a crystal ball.
Yep.
That's why I try to get, the kids that I work with to open up as fast as they possibly can. Because once I get them to open up, then they're actually starting to express some feelings like, hey, like I'm trying to get someone to swing hard. Like if I'm going to hit a ball, I'm going to swing as hard as I can.
Yep.
Failure or not.
Yep.
Right? I want to be able to, after that bat or that pitch or whatever it may be, I can actually tell myself like, hey, I gave it everything I had.
Yeah.
And that's the way I want these kids to go about it, because it's all about like, what is this coach going to think of me, or what is this kid going to think of me? It's like they're thinking about everything else but themselves. So that's what we try to go after.
Yeah, you do a really good job of getting all of the kids to open up really quick. Like I literally see you, and obviously I know you, and so I've watched you for years now. But like my softball team that I'm currently coaching will come up, and you'll just start talking to the girls, and they'll say something really just small, and you'd be like, oh really? So what is that? What is that? Right? And it just gets them talking. It gets them more.
I'm almost
engaged.
Like a shrink.
Oh yes,
almost,
you are. Yeah. I mean, with Sophie, you were a shrink, and she had the bat in the hand, right? And you were like, hey, let's talk about the game. How does this work? And I did see you attack the mindset a lot when you were coaching with her. I think that the other thing I want to know from you is, as a coach, so I'd say I'm very passionate. Some people might say I'm a freaking prick, right? But it just depends on how you go. But I am super passionate. I step on a field to win, okay?
Thank you.
Now, I think you have to have the mindset, win or lose, I feel like you have to have the mindset you step on the field to win every single time, right? Now, the important part is, yes, that you develop and you learn from the losses and you don't freaking dwell on them. As a coach, I'll be straight up, put it out there, and they know that I'm not good at losing. I freaking hate it, right? We usually run a lot of polls. I count how many signs were missed during the game. But really what I attack is the mental side. How many signs were missed? Yep. Did you receive the ball and not know where to go with it, right? Not the physical piece of the game, because we know they're going to make mistakes on the physical piece. But I really think we can control the mindset piece of the game a lot more. And if you can get that piece in place, then that's where you're going. So how do you take these kids who you've already developed to them, hey, look, you're not going to be perfect, you're not going to do those things. How do you keep them engaged? That's like, and that goes well within business too, right? People get in the mindset, they think they're winning, they think they're doing great, and then they get complacent and they lose it, right? How do you keep these kids engaged for an entire game, for practice, for all those things that they need to do?
I think it's, excuse me, I think it's a game within a game, right? So you're going into war, but like it's a team sport, but it's also an individual sport. So I think when I talk about game within a game, like pitcher versus hitter, I think we're battling a game within a game of our minds and what we actually need to do. So if you preach to these kids that, hey, there's always something for you to do, premeditating what you're going to do if the ball comes to you.
Right.
So you're always preaching on and teaching on this stuff, but realistically, it's doing the little things that are going to win ball games. And really, if you're looking at the scoreboard, it's the person with the least amount of errors probably going to win that game
every time. Almost,
yeah. So taking care of the ball or softball, I always say that. Like I always say baseball and softball lessons. I'm like always catching myself. I'm like, man, I'm so sorry. And I know they just look at me.
I'm sure the girls are like, really? Come on.
Yeah. But I mean, it's however much, like when I talk to my high school kids, there's always something for you to do. Whether you're sitting on the bench and you're not playing that inning or those 2 innings, you got to be watching. You got to be watching the pitcher, trying to get tabs on him, and if he's giving away a pitch, like informing your guys that you're playing that are playing in the game right now. And that's kind of the game within a game. And obviously, I kind of teach on a lot of like progressions in hitting. Like if you're fifth in the lineup, like look at the pitcher, start doing a scouting report on him. What is his strengths? What is his weaknesses? Is he throwing a lot of strikes? Has he got good off speed? Start to get a plan. So when we talk about student before athlete, I talk about, what if you're going to take a test? You got finals this next week. Are you going to study all the way up until finals? Or are you just going to look at it one time and then say, I got it, and then hope that you do good on it? Right. So it's like a lot of the kids I work with are phenomenal students. I think our average GPA was like a 3.8.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's great for us in the recruiting side because it's a little bit easier to get these guys into school. But like, what would you do if you had a final? Like you'd study every single day, all the way up into finals. Yep. And so, why are you changing what you're successful at in school when it comes to sports? So if you're a hitter and you're fifth up, you should be studying that pitcher, and getting yourself into a position where you can have success, right? So if 1 through 3 is up right now, you're on the bench, you got your gloves on, you're already mentally preparing for this at bat. You're thinking about their strengths and weaknesses. That way, when you get in the hole, now you can start looking at, the angle of his arm. So if he's going to have arm side run or whatever, if it's, the lower the arm, the more run that they're naturally going to have, if any. Timing. Most kids, you get your foot down when the ball's halfway. So when you get on deck circle, like all you've done, all this preparation, like you already know, hey, this guy's throwing a lot of strikes. He's not going to beat me velocity wise. He hasn't really showed me any off speed pitch that he can consistently be in the strike zone with. So I'm not really worried about off speed. I'm just really sitting on fastball. So if they're mentally preparing themselves for that stuff, and when they get in the box, they're really in a position to have success. The kids that don't do that are really just in there hoping. Yeah. So I always teach, do everything with a purpose. The little things, whether it be stretching. A lot of kids don't stretch very good. Yep. They don't throwing just to throw, or throwing to warm up and warming up to throw. 2 different things. Hitting with a purpose. Instead of just swinging just to swing. So like all these little things I feel like is a game within a game, right? If you do the little things correctly, then when it comes to that big moment, those battles, those wars that we call baseball games or whatever, football, whatever sport it is, we're going to be more prepared in that aspect.
I think for life, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
this is it. We're setting the stage. We were coaching last weekend, and you hear the Fortnite chatter, right? They're talking about Fortnite in the dugout during a game, and you're like, "Are you kidding me right now?" So I said, "I need to get their minds centered on something." I said, "Who's going to lead this dugout and start counting first pitch strikes and what they're throwing 0-2?"
Right.
And now all of a sudden, once I gave them a job, like 4 of them were like, "Ooh, I do," right? So then it become this. Now you have a plan within. We're always looking for leaders, right? I don't want just ball players. I want to find that kid who really can create a movement within his team and lead them. And I know you're looking for that as well. That's probably one of the key points you see for successful players. What things are you doing to help kids become leaders? Are there things that you're pointing them to, or you're saying you need to do this? Or what does that look like? Because it's hard to find natural leadership.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that, you really can't push someone to be a leader.
Yes.
You could talk to them about their leadership qualities that you see in them to kind of try to push them in that direction.
Yep.
But that's the hardest part, man. I mean, there's guys that, like, I've made mistakes on trying to appoint somebody as leadership role, and they totally backfired in my face. Because then they get to this spot where.
But we're still friends. So
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
No, but I mean, I think they've taken it. I think if you try to train the whole team to be, to have leadership qualities, then some guys will start to, rise out of the pack. So, but I want to. You said something about Fortnite, and I wanted to just hit on that a little bit. I think this generation, like Fortnite's a thing. Like, I mean, I grew up with Call of Duty and all that stuff, and I played a lot of it. Believe me. But
Fortnite, y'all. I had Pac-Man.
Right,
There you
Donkey
go.
Kong.
Mold, right?
Sega Genesis and
Yeah.
what's this PlayStation, Xbox stuff? No, so with Fortnite, so it's funny because all the kids come in, and I know they all play Fortnite. They talk about it all the time. I try to start to, and I've watched Fortnite, and I kind of did studying up on it and just watched some YouTube videos on kind of, what it's all about, what the, objective is, and 100 people, you're trying to be first out of 100, right? And you can either run and hide, or you can do all this stuff. So I try to connect Fortnite with how I teach too. So I'm trying to be a little bit, moldy when I talk about, like, if I'm a piece of clay and I'm stuck in my own ways, I know how to get to where I was, right? But now it's a lot different, because you gotta kind of conform to what these kids are learning nowadays, and what they're doing, and how they realistic how they learn. So if I can throw in a Fortnite,
Some
like
bit of
you
reference.
weren't
yeah.
like when it comes to failure, and kids are like, man, I just can't hit the ball. Well, you play Fortnite, right? You probably died in that game 100 times, but you still restarted.
Restart.
And then, like, I'm like, hey, have you ever taken first? Like, what's the best you've done, right? How long did it take you to do that? Well, it took me 3 weeks. It took you 3 weeks to get to 10th place. Well, just think, if you put as much time into your swing as you did Fortnite, just think how much better you'd be. And so once you start pairing that, like, that timeline of how much time, like, so if you spend 4 hours a day, I'm not trying to say, hey, go spend 4 hours hitting, because that's unrealistic, right? But if you did an hour a day,
Sorry, Sophie,
or a bucket a day, yeah,
She took off school today.
if you did a bucket a day,
Yeah.
and it was 30 swings, and you took 15 minutes out of your Fortnite kind of section of how long you play, that's just going to make you that much better, right? So I start to pair that with that, and then it really starts to hit on the mental aspect of, like, man, you're right. And so they start putting more time into your swing, and then they get better because they're getting,
So it's so funny. I'm sitting here thinking, I make fun of Fortnite and we say stuff about it, but I've never taken the approach of getting on their level.
Yeah.
yeah.
My stupidity right there. Absolutely. I'm not leading by design, right? I'm asking for them to lead. I'm asking for them to be more engaged. I'm asking for this, but I'm not doing the same thing. My example would be to go learn Fortnite and use that in reference to them. Get on their level and speak their language. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that is the biggest light bulb I've had. Is no, this is the way we do it, right? That's how we approach it a lot of times. It can't be
Right.
the way that we do it anymore. Holy cow. I am like, what have I been doing? It's so clearly obvious.
I think
You
the
have to
key
get on
is
that level.
you guys need to coach
Dude,
softball.
thank you.
Okay, you guys need to coach softball. I think is the key. So both of you guys get out of baseball and coach softball.
There's no Fortnite.
Well, there's no Fortnite.
Yeah, what do they
and
do?
here's the other thing: is there's cheers all game long.
God.
So you don't have a kid sitting on the bench because they're always like, "That's why we hustle. That's why we hustle." It's a whole different. It's a whole different thing, man.
You know what I love about softball? Between softball and baseball, those girls are so intense.
Oh my gosh.
And the
Way more
game
than
is
the dudes.
the game is so much closer and so much faster. But I worked with Josh's team, and they're like want to work out. They want to do like squat jumps. They want to do all this stuff. I can't even get my high school kids to want to do that. I'm like, oh my god, I love working with softball players.
Yep.
Especially his team. He's got some characters on his team, and they're awesome.
That's so cool.
He doesn't look young, but they keep him young.
Oh, for sure. My team is amazing. Like they are so much fun. I had to apologize to my team because I was treating them like a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-old young men that I coached baseball with, right? Yeah. It's different when you're coaching 11 and 12-year-old girls. It's a whole different thing. And so I had to apologize to my team, and now they have permission that if I get up and I yell, that they can be like, Coach, go to your happy place, right? Because because that's not
This is the new age, right?
Right. Well, it's because that's not what you should be doing with a 12-year-old child, right? So
Exactly.
they should really be enjoying the game, like Chad said earlier, instead of worried about walking off to the field and what I'm going to say to them. I told them, if I see one of you cry again this year, that's my fault. I don't want to see that happen again. Like, that can't happen at 11 and 12 years old when they're trying to find a way to love the game.
Yeah.
Instead, you're being the jerk and you're taking it away from them, right? So as coaches, we have to know those things and be able to do them the right way. And we learn just like anybody else every single day. Like, I've been coaching for a long time. Justin, you've been coaching for a long time. We both know we've learned crap today, and we've been doing this forever. I mean, Chad's 10 years younger than us. He shouldn't be able to tell me anything. Screw Chad. But I learned from him
Chad's smarter than
every
us today.
freaking time I sit with him. When Sophie had lessons, I sat in on the lessons because I was learning as she was learning, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the other key thing that you do very well is that you invite people in, your coaches, your people in to learn because we're always trying to get better. And a lot of us
Coaches.
have the ego that they don't want to get there, right? I had to check my ego. We were telling a story earlier when me and Chad literally had words on a field. He was wrong for sure, but that's okay. We had words on the field because we were talking about cut drills, and I was old school. He was like simplifying the game, and I'm like, F you, don't simplify the game in front of the kids, in front of me. And then I called him out. He called me out. We hugged it out later, but
We did do that.
we did hug it out. That's the other key thing, is right. You got to let stuff go. You can't dwell on it. It's what's that going to do for you? Nothing, right? But you always are bringing people to be better. I love that, man. Whether it's the kids, whether it's your coaches, whether it's the people you're around. That's why I love being around you as much as I do, is because you're always trying to help people be better at who they are by the littlest things. By I had a good day. Really? What does that mean to you? What does that good day mean to you?
It's very easy for them to just say one-word answers, but I want them to open up and communicate a little bit more. Especially in failure. Everybody's result-oriented at this age group. At the youth ages, at the high school ages, and if we can get past that result-oriented type of mindset, and we get into like the hard-working mindset, and being able to have short-term memory and just go about all the things at your best ability and be happy with that's what I'm trying to do. Instead of it's like, like I always put it to the kids this way is like, if you go 1 for 4 for 65 games, is that good or bad? And they say, well, it's bad. Well, I have a different way of looking at 1 for 4 for 65 games. I'm on a 65-game hit streak right now.
Right.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, well, yeah, you're right. And so like now I'm starting to like trying to mold their mind into thinking like 1 for 4 is not bad.
Right.
It's actually really good. And if you did that for the whole entire season, like now you're thinking about streaks and you're talking about things that like what do MLB Network if a guy's on a streak, they don't really care what he does to the other at bats. They're waiting for that hit.
That's all they talk about.
That's
is the
all they
streak.
talk
Yeah.
about. So if we start training our younger athletes to think about like, that way, it's like, hey, you know what? You got a couple more at bats coming up. Like you need, and as simple as thinking, for pitchers, pitch to pitch. That's what they're focusing on. You're not thinking about the last one you threw, the next one you're thinking about the now, right? And then with the hitters, it's really hard to make adjustments, in and at bat. You can, but it's just not. It's really hard. Yeah. So taking your adjustments and working at bat to at bat, right? And I think if we position it that way, these guys are going to start to, we're going to start changing the culture, and culture is the hardest thing to change, or even to create. Absolutely. So
this is so amazing because Josh and I have been in sales for a long time, most of our adult life, right? Everything we're talking about here today is something I've heard almost verbatim at a sales conference or from a sales trainer. Yeah. It's these same principles. It's skill set, mindset, action, right? But the mindset, I think, is the biggest piece that these kids are lacking at this point. Right. And it is the 1 for 4 for 65 straight games. I was like, you're hitting 250. You're doing fine. And you brought it to a new level. No, that's 65-game hit streak. I'm like,
you can make it to the Hall of Fame with 65-game hit streak.
Absolutely. That is awesome. But I think it is preparing these kids. If we can coach and be better coaches and go through this process with them, we are preparing them more for life, for reality of life. Look, there's probably not going to be any that go to the big leagues from this.
Yeah, that's the reality. You're trying to get them to think outside the box, right, and not being,
Absolutely. So we grew up. I'm older than you, obviously. Josh is older than me, so that's good. We grew up old school baseball, right? Mm-hmm. Your coach yelled at you. You ran till you threw up, until it was ingrained in your head. You did it their way. There was no debating. You didn't talk to your coach ever. There was no dialogue. There was no talk. Mm-hmm. That was just it. You did what they said. What do you see are the differences today between how these kids are coming up? And we alluded a little bit to the parents, but we now have programs. We coach and pray. You run a full-on, year-round baseball program that did not exist 20 years ago in Colorado.
And softball.
And softball, sorry.
Don't leave that one out.
Yeah.
Hearing about that forever.
Yeah. But what do you see? What spurred that movement? And do you think it's a good thing for Colorado and for kids? And, I don't know, do you have kids, and is this a direction you'd want them to go, or is it kind of a slower approach?
So I do. I got almost a 14-month-old son at home.
Nice.
And he's already swinging the bat.
Congrats,
yeah, he is. I got a video of it. It's pretty awesome. Proud of him.
Amazing.
I think he's gonna throw right and hit left, so I'm okay with that. Yeah, at least it's
great.
Something lefty.
Yep.
But what I'm seeing is, just with the technology nowadays, cell phones, I've heard some horror stories about coaches and their players with cell phones and recording. It's like, when we were growing up, like you said, a coach told you to do something, that was the truth, and you just did it, whether it be running or whatever it may be. Like, there's no talk back. It was just get it done. Yep. Nowadays, coaches got to be careful, because if they're talking and just kind of out of their it gets to the point where those kids are going to go straight to YouTube, straight to the internet, and look it up and test your credibility. Yeah. And if it is wrong, and a big leaguer saying something totally different, then guess what? You just lost that kid forever.
Yep.
So it's very important for coaches to continue to study, and the game's changing so much every single year. Just think the major league average when I was in pro ball was 88.5. Now it's probably close to 94. Everybody's throwing 100 miles an hour nowadays. So and so it's changing every single day. I've been a part of when I played in the Atlantic League. I've been a part of them trying to introduce a pretty much a pitch shot clock. In baseball. Yeah. And in the Atlantic League is a lot of AA, AAA players, ex-big leaguers that play in those leagues, and you have to have those credentials to play in there. And so really they use that league to test anything that they want to try to implement into the game itself. So they're talking about like moving the pitching mound to 61 or 62 inches or 62 feet, right?
Yeah.
So like extending
Pulling
the mound.
Yeah.
And so they're going to test that in the Atlantic League. And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds horrible. I'm like, my arm's starting to hurt and just thinking about that. But I think, we're battling technology nowadays. And if coaches aren't keeping up with the knowledge of the game and the new stuff, you're just going to lose kids. And realistically, we're losing kids at, 13, 14 years old to coaches that do have that old school mentality of, hard-nosed, yelling at their kids. Like, that's when kids mostly quit this game.
Yeah.
And so as an ambassador of the game, you know, as we, the three of us sitting up here, you know, we should be continuing to study the game itself and staying up with the times and you know, making sure that it's a positive environment where fun happens rather than, you know, we're stressing on just winning and losing. It's not all about that. You know, I think if we develop our kids the correct way and we give them the right kind of atmosphere, then we're gonna do these guys justice and you know, keep them in this game that we love. So
it's so cool to watch them become good people.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I've been with this group for a couple of years, and you see them blossoming into their personalities are coming through, their character is coming through, and it's just so incredible to see what effect this game has on them and what effect we have on them. It's a great responsibility, and it's a daunting task.
Yeah.
And you got to be fully prepared. I love that you brought that up about they will check you. And we see that all the time in business with our clients. You could tell them one thing and you know it 100%. This is what it is. We had it happen yesterday with a client. And they called back and said, well, I learned this might be different. And it's like, yeah, but that's not the circumstance, right?
Right.
We appreciate you bringing that up, but I think there's
And what website did you go to?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Delete that one. But it is, sometimes we can drive a wedge in that relationship if we're not honest and truthful and have done our homework. So I think for coaches now, I see it. It's a big job. We used to have the coach that would just roll out of the rack after, you know, a long week of work and show up with a bucket of balls, and that's your coach, like ill prepared, like swing harder or whatever. And now
I love you, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was my dad. Now it's a job, and you better be on point.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have both said something too that said like coach the coach, right? So the coaches can't stop learning. That's 100% correct, man. When I took over the varsity squad, we both know I had no clue. I played high school level baseball. I was a good high school player. That's it.
Yeah.
Right? That is it. Had no right coaching these kids to where they were going to go. So I had to study, man. I was YouTubing video after video. I was going to talking to guys like Chad. Yes, we have to coach these kids, but the other thing is we have to remember to coach the coaches. It's just like Justin and your coaching that you're doing now. You're going to coach coaches, right? You're going to help those coaches be better so that they can be better leaders in those things. I will say that one thing I do that we talked about, wins and losses aren't everything, right? And that's true. But I do think they need to celebrate more than just the win column, but the little wins that are in every game, like the 65 game, you know, hit streak. So one thing we've started doing with our team is, you know, every girl has a notebook and a pencil. They have to have it in their bag. If they don't have it in their bag, that's when they run polls, right? So bring that to practice, bring it to games. And one thing they do is after the games, they write down 2 good things they did in the game. We don't focus anymore on, hey, you screwed up on that, you screwed up on that. Now we're focused on, hey, go write down 2 good things you did in that game and how it worked. And so it's helping those kids focus more on the positive things that happen instead of, holy crap, I went 0 for 4. Yeah, but you went 0 for 4, but how was your approach into that at bat? Yeah. Did you go and swing hard? Did you go and take the good hacks? And then the other thing I love that you talked about, Chad, I know we're going to wrap this up, is having a game within the game. So the other thing that, and I learned this from you and from other people along your lines, that our girls, if they're on deck or if they're in the hole, study the pitcher. Well, the girl who just got done hitting just went and took that test. They just went and did it, right? So my girls, it gives me so much satisfaction to watch my girl who just struck out or my girl who just got thrown out at first, that come back, stop the girl who's going to the plate and say, this is what I just saw. It's nothing makes me happier than them knowing that is what they're focused on, their individual piece to do extremely well. But as soon as they're done with their individual piece, how can I make the next person better for their at-bat? It's been amazing to create that game within it. So thank you for giving us those principles and things so I could implement that.
And that's just the culture you're creating with your team, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's huge.
It's amazing. So you've alluded to culture a couple of times. Mm-hmm. How do you create a culture within your program as a whole? Because you coach softball and baseball from little kids to college, right? But you want this culture to permeate throughout every team. So you've got that, and then you got the coaches like us who come in and screw it up and try and steal that from you. So what does that look like? And then what tips on creating a culture with young people?
Well, running an organization, you're going to get new kids every single year
Yeah.
and new kids at each age group. So you're hoping that those kids that have been in your program for a number of years or at least a season are going to pass that on.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's the hardest thing to create, and I've gone to, conventions where they talk about culture, like the wolf pack mentality, and so I kind of just it just really depends. One most important, I have to pass it to the coaches first.
Okay.
That's the most important part because those are my voices.
Yep.
And my limbs can't spread as far as as those guys.
Yep.
And then two, hopefully the kids pass it on to their parents. So. I mean, it's so hard, and it can get fumbled up, just like that.
Yep.
But I think just continually preaching it and consistently preaching it of what our philosophies are, and just the harder you work, the better you're going to be, and preach that consistency and work on the positives rather than negatives because the negatives are so easy to get brought up.
Yeah.
So if we create a positive atmosphere, then I think we're doing our jobs. And if the kids are excited to be there and want to be there, I think that's the culture I want. I want kids to want to hang around the facility and want to be there and want to work hard. And there's a purpose behind everything that they do rather than just being there just to be present.
It's cool. We went to an event the other night. We won an award for top workplaces, and so they had a keynote speaker that was up there, and he said, here's what we do is we take all the questions, the surveys, everything that you guys put together, and then we extrapolate data from that and try and find trends and try and find reasons that people win awards or people feel good about working somewhere. And he said there's three things. Number one is they feel safe and comfortable in that place. They feel like they can go there and be themselves. Number two is they feel fully empowered to reach their full potential. Right, so they're there and they're going, this group here is going to help me get to that mountaintop, whatever it is. And then the last piece was the leadership has given a clear vision of where they're going, and they spread that word all the time. It was those three things alone that created an amazing culture. And I think if we can boil it down to those small, simple things, even for kids, it helps to just give that to them. It's incredible, and you've nailed it. We've played against your program. You guys are a class act. Not every program in Colorado is. There's a bunch of jerks out there, and there's a bunch of a-hole kids out there. And you guys do it right. You've always done it right. We've always walked away from losing to you guys mostly and saying, man, they were a class act. They did things the way that we would do them. And we like to pray around the mound after every game.
Of course.
We huddle up, and we invite the other team, and there are teams that say no. And that's always kind of sad. I don't care if you believe in anything, whatever, but to miss that opportunity to get together, and you guys always do. And it's so cool to see that. And I have mad levels of respect for the program that you have, how you're approaching it, the kids that you're pumping out, and just what you're doing to affect change in this society is incredible.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, and realistically, if it wasn't for the staff that I have over there, I mean, we'd be essentially lost. So a collective, we're so close as a coaching group. It's collaborate. There's not one person making one decision. It's it's a collective thing, which is awesome. And I think the closer we are as a coaching staff, and the closer our teams are going to be, and realistically we'll have success. Hopefully,
that's awesome.
I love his humble approach.
That's
really good. I mean, legit, Chad is such a key factor to that organization. It's a great organization, but without Chad, it's amazing. I just don't see it being the same thing. You do amazing things with the organization. You do amazing things with the kids. This collaboration you talk about, where do you think that starts, man? Right? That starts with you and with Chad and those guys. So there's two Chads.
Okay.
Right. So,
I know he's going to watch this, but I'm just the better looking one. So
right. Yeah, exactly. But you guys do an amazing job with those things, and it's super appreciative. For me, obviously knowing you forever and learning from you, it's just been awesome, man. And I'll continue to learn from you forever. I mean, it's been great. So, thank you so much for coming out and sharing with us.
Thanks for having me.
It was awesome.
Really appreciate this.
Don't stop, man. The parallels between baseball and life are incredible, and you got it going. So thank you.
Thank you.
There it is.
I want to keep going, damn it.
I know we could
going.
That was 50 minutes. We could go for like another hour, easy.
I will do volume 2. We'll do another
right.
session.
Sure, I'd be happy to come back.
We'll talk the guts of baseball. So, hey, good luck this weekend in your tournaments. I hope we win, but whatever.
Hope we be competitive.
We'll be competitive.
Hope for a competitive baseball game.
There you go. That's all we want. That's all we want.
Yep.
All right, y'all. We'll see you. We're off next week.
We are.
I am in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Legislative meetings. I will be in the
Thick of it,
in
man.
the thick. I'll be in the Senate hearing room for a day, meeting with legislators and all that. It's super fun. But we'll catch up the following week and keep it going, you guys. Thank you for plugging in. This is a great turnout. Awesome stuff.
Thanks, guys.